Hi, Dudu. Hi, Robin. Pleasure to meet.
I hear bells charming. Are you by a church, anyone? It's 11 o'clock. It sounds like church bells.
That's probably from my side. The Swiss, they ring every hour, so now it
Oh,
should be
wow.
gone.
Do you live near a church? Do you live in a church? The Church of
Yeah,
Bitcoin.
it sounds like it, right? Like it's actually astounding that it's amplifying through the AirPods as much because I'm inside my house and it's everything is close to church in Switzerland because in every village you have multiple churches, but it's still like more than half a mile. So yeah,
Yeah,
impressive.
it's nice to have your own sort of clock, like, oh shit, it's 1 o'clock now, it's the hour's up. Like, I'm in a room, I can sometimes get completely lost. So we're live. Let's wait for everyone to join us in. In the meantime, we can post the space, just kind of share it with everyone, and let people start to funnel in, ask questions. Thomas and Matti, welcome to the show. Oh, we have the five-man
I'm just
lineup.
funneling in.
Okay, we have a
Thank you,
five-man
guys.
lineup. Welcome. Good morning, everyone. GM. It is a good morning. I mean, we do the show every week on a Tuesday. Last week we did it on a Thursday, so there's only been 5 days between the two shows, and 5 days seemed like a lifetime. A lifetime. The gray hairs on my head are multiplying like rabbits, like mushrooms, because of what we've gone through. So I'm happy to have an amazing group of people on to discuss that. We'll get to everyone just now. You can tweet out the space, just kind of get people involved, and we will start with GMs, starting from Robin, Stefan, Thomas, and then finally Matti. Short little intro, and tell us what you are, what you do. And we also like to play a game on the show. The game is called Dump, Hodl, or Buy. So you have to choose one asset to dump, one asset to hodl, one asset to buy. It's not financial advice. We just do it for fun. Today's three candidates are Tron, Cardano, and XRP. So introduce yourself and then give us your take on Tron, Cardano, or XRP. Which one are you dumping? Which one are you hodling? Which one are you buying? Robin, you are up.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have to break the rules for this game. Unfortunately, I have to dump all three of them and only buy Bitcoin. But that's just me, maybe. Yeah, like this is probably even a good introduction already. I'm a Bitcoiner. I'm a Bitcoin podcast host. I have like really cool people already on my show, including Thomas. He was not that long ago on my show. I'm glad to see him here on the Breakfast Bitcoin show also. Yeah, I'm just a Bitcoiner. You can also call me Bitcoin Max. I'm only holding Bitcoin. I'm 104% in Bitcoin, and I'm loving it. A lot of great news are coming out in the last few weeks and months, and I mean years even. I mean the Trump saga, and I love the title which you put, like Trump is alive and so is Bitcoin. I mean, if Trump wouldn't be alive, Bitcoin would still be alive. But I think it's great that we have a front runner in the presidential election that is pro Bitcoin. I also love the fact that the front runner that is pro Bitcoin is making a difference between Bitcoin and crypto, because for me there's a big difference. And he always says like Bitcoin and crypto. This kind of goes to saying that he sees some different asset classes there, and he's also speaking at the Bitcoin conference. I'm really bullish on that, and it's just what a time to be alive. Like just like 2 years ago, it would be unprecedented, unheard of that the most likely next president of the United States, if he is still alive, but then will be a pro Bitcoin guy. He's also in talks with 2 vice presidents that I saw, and those are also pro Bitcoin. Will be interesting what he announces, and I'm just like really pumped for Bitcoin and the Bitcoin future.
Epic. Well, it's always good to have Maxis in the house. It's because Matti loves to debate the Maxis, so we're gonna hopefully get into that. Stefan, Godly Son, is that like a Japanese moniker, or is that like a...
Exactly. Good morning, crypto world. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks very much for the invite. So yeah, a little bit about myself. I started my career going into IT as a mechanical engineer, and I actually never felt so comfortable around all these educated engineers, and everyone had kind of a head start. And then blockchain like came along the way. It's my third cycle now, so we're talking about around 2017, where I got attracted by this new format, this new technology, these new opportunities to build the software of the future. And I saw it attracted me because without the IT background, I just saw that there's a lot of playgrounds to build a career, build expertise, which is maybe not easily accessible through the traditional educational systems. So I dived deep into crypto back then. I couldn't get out anymore. I think it's so exciting. It's just like kind of a dog's year, right? So you live through 7 years in one, and once you embraced it, you don't want to go out, even though we still struggle with a bit the same topics like 3 cycles ago. Anyways, like currently I'm working in a venture studio. We built it up. We're working on different cases in Web 2 and Web 3. Also supporting a tremendous organization and DAO, Mighty Labs, with Trailblaze as an IDEO launchpad. Really tremendous team, mainly from Israel, but also around the world. A lot of OGs in the space follow this group closely to hopefully bring a sustainable impact in the space and be able to capture real economic value in this next cycle we are facing. So yeah, this is a bit about myself and where I'm engaged. I'm very fascinated about alternative asset classes, not only Bitcoin. I understand that maxis have their rights to be maxi because obviously he's the front runner. We all know what it is about, and alternative assets maybe sometimes are a bit in a dispute if they make sense or not. Nonetheless, I would still buy Tron. I would say I think I like very much how they evolved since 2017. I was part of the IDO, and probably HODL XRP further on. You know, when I first entered crypto, XRP was like in your face. I think it's one of the beginners coins, how they do market and how risk averse it seems, but then you're just stuck in a stable asset somehow. So maybe eventually it will be worth to hold. So I would HODL and dump Cardano for sure. I never really got what's the point of splitting up these strengths. So I hope that they will maybe come together and build together the next layer of the future instead of just fighting and competing.
Thank you, Godly Son. We have one Bitcoiner, only one. I wouldn't say altcoin maxis. I think, you know, what I love about a lot of people in the space is that they recognize, you know, for me, I'm not a Bitcoin maxi. I believe, you know, in some innovation elsewhere, but I do think Bitcoin is going to rule supreme forever. So, you know, there's kind of, it's not black and white, but it's good to have different voices on the chat. Thomas, where do you fall on the spectrum? Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Hey guys, yeah, well, thank you for having me on the show. Yeah, I mean, I consider myself a Bitcoiner, or I guess you could say Bitcoin maximalist. I don't invest in other cryptos, so I guess that would put me in the Bitcoin maximalist camp. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really interesting whether there is kind of a future for other cryptocurrencies. I mean, I'm not going to say I know for certain. I mean, there's certainly like what, $1 trillion worth of assets that are non-Bitcoin. Maybe it's not that much, but there's a lot of alternative crypto networks out there. So I mean, it is what it is. But if you look at the sort of, you know, just from like an investment portfolio perspective, nobody's going to outperform Bitcoin, or I certainly don't think you should in expectation. So for me, it's like, yeah, it's a pretty easy choice. I just want to invest in, you know, the future world's global reserve currency. So that it makes a very easy decision for me. That's personally, but yeah, what I'm really focusing on is looking at these sort of day-to-day Bitcoin flows, like what's happening in the markets. Because I think it's really interesting, kind of staying on top of the news, and then yeah, sort of focusing more on kind of Bitcoin's adoption, but from the perspective of within the traditional financial system and how it's being like that, how these ETFs are being embedded into the traditional financial system. You're seeing Bitcoin become a major asset for Wall Street. And then it's this sort of global race of all these ETFs all over the world. That's really what I'm focused on at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to have to give you a little props for your ETF tracker. And I'm going to show you just how much of a Bitcoiner Thomas actually is in a second, right? His ETF tracker on Apollo, that's the one I use to kind of track the ETF flows. And it doesn't even have this chart that I use doesn't even have a USD amount. So Thomas is already living in the future where Bitcoin is a unit of account, and there is no such thing as fiat. So that is kind of the mindset. I mean, I keep telling people I don't invest in Bitcoin because investment implies I'm buying low, I'm selling high. I'm holding Bitcoin because that is the new reserve currency. I buy and spend Bitcoin. Sometimes I'll spend it, on a little things here and there. But this is in that spirit, the spirit of Bitcoin as a unit of account. So there isn't even dollar amounts on this chart, which is lovely. But as you can see the daily flows, and more importantly, you can see the cumulative flows. I don't see that on any other chart. So thank you for that, Thomas. It helped understand when we're going to rock it. And I think the flows are at all-time high right now.
Yeah, they are.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, no, it's pretty cool to see that, especially in the last couple of weeks where we had this kind of big event with Germany selling 50,000 Bitcoin, that these ETFs have really come in and proved their worth, not just for rocketing Bitcoin, but also maybe providing a base of support for Bitcoin as well. Clearly, there's this underlying demand, and when it looks like Bitcoin is starting to get a bit cheap, the flows really picked up, which is very cool to see. A lot of people have been speculating, hey, when the price dips, the ETFs will sell, but it didn't work out that way. Actually, just the buying increased.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the German government is selling to Larry Fink, and that's all you really need to know about the last 2 days of Bitcoin. Mighty Greenspan, how are you doing? GM, I want to kind of take it to you and start the show with your take on the last 5 days since the last time we had a chance to converse. The world has gone absolutely bananas, and it's just, it's just kind of testament to how acclimatized we've become to these shape-shifting events that kind of go about our day. It's not like a presidential candidate just nearly got killed. So what's your feelings about the last couple days event?
40 years, I think, something like that. Good morning, Dudu, my esteemed panelists, and all of the bots out there watching us today. Appreciate you. If you are a human and watching, please do leave a comment so that we can know that there's humans out there. But I do believe already that I've seen more comments than panelists. So I think that's like a first for us on the breakfast show. Congratulations to us, Dudu. I'm going to play your game this time, and I'm going to play by the rules. And this is only by the charts. Okay, so let's take a look at the charts for Tron and Cardano and XRP. And you can see very clearly the setups here and the divergence in setups. So Tron, as you rightly mentioned, I think it was last week or the week before, has one of the highest volumes for all of DeFi. People are actually using Tron to settle accounts. People are using Tron to send money across the world, much cheaper than Bitcoin. I don't use it yet because everybody accepts Bitcoin. Bitcoin is just much more acceptable. When you say, hey, to somebody who's not, pilled, you say, hey, can I pay you in Bitcoin? They're like, well, okay, they think about it and they figure it out. But if you say, can I pay you in Tron, I think it's going to be a different story over there. But yeah, so Tron at the moment, I would say, look, it's hit a peak. It's kind of a double top situation over here. So I'm going to say a hodl. I'm not seeing a very clear buy signal, but also I don't want to sell it at the moment. Cardano, I'm going to surprise you with a buy call. Look, buy low, sell high. I'm sorry, I don't think that Charles Hoskinson is the shit. I'm not I'm not like buying into their whole thing, but as insofar as they've been building this thing for 10 years, and they still have a very strong community, and they're still showing progression, even though they're not showing adoption yet. This was always their plan. If you read the research I wrote nearly 10 years ago on Cardano, you're going to find out that they always wanted to take it slow, and they always wanted to develop before increasing adoption. So I'm going to say on this one, buy. And the reason for that also is because I think everything's about to blow up, and I'll tell you why in a second. XRP is my dump. I'm sorry, this is a sell signal. It can't get past that, that level that just seems like what the fuck? You just get over the hump already. And also not because I think it's necessarily going to go down, but because I think that when you're saying XRP right now, you have an opportunity cost. I think there's going to be other things that are going to go up a lot faster. A lot of their court cases have already been settled, and they're still not out there building. They're still not out there forging partnerships with banks. Brad Garlinghouse, if you're watching, and I know you sometimes are, get your ass in gear, man.
Matti, I want to challenge you to pull up a chart of, all those coins that you mentioned against BTC, because it's not a big ask to beat the dollar that keeps appreciating. But let's see how these bad boys fare against the king.
Well, we do know that. Okay, so Bitcoin dominance. I'm gonna do a little side note because you mentioned it, because you asked so nicely. So Bitcoin dominance has been rising as the prices have been falling. And we do know that when there is a bull market and a raging bull market, which I believe we're about to enter for reasons I'm about to explain, that Bitcoin dominance tends to decline, and that altcoins tend to outperform Bitcoin in these type of market scenarios. Now, I'm not talking about long-term hodl. Long-term, if your plan is just to hodl it for 10 years, probably you're going to be best going off with Bitcoin, maybe 5 or 10% in others, just in case they do a super outperformance, which we have seen those type of things in the past. And then you can take profits on. Thank you so much for all of the people who are commenting at the moment. This is awesome. Please put some of those comments on the screen so that we can share around here. Bitcoin USD. I'm going to show you what happened when they tried to shoot Trump. There it is. That little orange circle. I was watching this in real time. I shared it with our Quantum Alpha Club.
Sean has a bone to pick with you, Matti. Sean has a bone to pick with us all, because he's probably coming out because he's heard Robin and Thomas are going to be they're going to talk Austrian economics in a nice German accent. And you come and we come here and we're shilling them shit.
Well, I know, and we also have another Bitcoin maximalist on the panel. Look, I've never actually said buy Cardano before. Those words have never escaped my lips. But again, I'm saying this only because I believe we're about to enter a raging bull phase, and because I was looking at the charts and saying, okay, where is the best chart setup right now? I'm not saying this because I think that Cardano is the shit. I'm not going to say what I think about Charles Hoskinson live on air. In any case, here is marked in orange where that sniper took the shot. You can see immediate dip in the price, but then immediate surge as people realize former President Trump is about to be the next president, and this time he is going to be a raging Bitcoin bull. Donald Trump is scheduled, as we know, to speak in the Bitcoin 2024 conference in Nashville. The headline, I will be there. So if you're there, drop me a line. And then you can see just what effect this has had. I'm going to zoom out for you just a little bit, because we know that Bitcoin has been ranging, right? It has been kind of doing this thing between, 57, 58,000 and like 72, 70, 73-ish almost. It's kind of been doing this range. And then this was a critical moment for Bitcoin's price action right here. Just a very critical moment where it's saying, okay, am I going into this bear market and coming down for the next leg of this decline? Or am I using this as a support level and bouncing off of it? And that exact moment is when we saw that bullet whiz by, hit his ear, and him get up and pump his fist in the air, and the entire world go, hell yeah, this Biden regime, which has been causing us so much trouble and so much strife over the last 4 years, economic collapse, wars around the world, is about to be over. And I think that's an extremely bullish prospect.
Thank you, Matti. What about anyone else care to comment? Thomas, you mentioned some charts and what kind of, what are the charts saying about, there's the qualitative side of, okay, good vibes in the air. Trump's vice president is apparently the number 5 biggest holder of AVAX coin, but he's also a massive Bitcoiner. He actually disclosed holding Bitcoin when he became a senator. So big bull vibes in the air, but there's also the quantitative side. What are the charts saying on your side, Thomas?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, firstly, I will just say that I saw that comment by Sean, and I think it's very funny, actually. And I have to say, I think it's good advice. But with that being said, in general, in terms of, yeah, there we go. With that being said, in terms of the question about what are the numbers? I mean, we're seeing massive pickup in flows recently. We started the year with a huge amount of huge buying in these big Bitcoin ETFs, particularly February and March. Then it kind of paused in this sort of April, May. We actually had outflows. And then really recently, we've seen a big extended run up in these ETF flows. And I suspect what we are going to see is we're going to see much more of that going forward. And I think it's because the infrastructure has been laid in place. It takes time in terms of for these ETFs to be offered to advisor clients, for advisors to take them up and actually offer it to their clients and have it be put on platforms and actually enabled for people to access Bitcoin. And I do think what we're going to see is a situation in which it becomes clear that Trump's winning the presidency. And that's extremely bullish for Bitcoin because that whole administration is really pro-Bitcoin in a way that the current administration is just not. There was the opportunity to pass the bill to enable Bitcoin to be custodied and linked by banks, and Congress passed it, Senate passed it, but the president vetoed it, or the White House, Biden vetoed it. So I would say these are the qualitative things, but I think that's much more important than looking at sort of TA stuff. Really, I mean, the TA stuff I think we can all see on a longer term stretch, right? Like. Anybody, you don't have to spend much time looking at the Bitcoin chart to see it's going up, going up and to the right. I think there's absolutely no doubt about that. And I do think that we're in a situation as well where, hey, I mean, Bitcoin was this price 3 years ago. It's a freaking like foundational setup where basically at this price it's de-risked. I mean, the German government just dumped 50,000 Bitcoin and they couldn't get it below $54,000. Like this is a completely de-risked price situation where so that kind of setup is exactly what we saw in 2020, where the Bitcoin trended sideways around 10,000 for a very long time, and then a guy like Michael Saylor came along and said, you know what, it's not going down, so I'm just going to buy 100 million. Well, I think what's going to happen is you're going to see guys like Michael Dell come in and say, hey, this 50,000, 60,000 base is there for Bitcoin. It's not going to 20. And if it's not going to 20, it's where else is it going? Well, it's going up, I think. So I think that we are going to see a general run up in the rest of the year and next year. And I do agree that it looks really, really bullish in general.
For sure. I mean, it's so simple sometimes, like we overcomplicate it with charts. And I do want to pull up one chart that I'm looking at. I think a bunch of people are looking at this chart. This is the short-term holder realized price. So this is the price at which short-term holders, I think it's classified under 3 months or under 6 months, the price at which the Bitcoins last moved. So essentially, if the short-term holder realized price is above the current Bitcoin price, then short-term holders, what we like to call the JEETs, are in profit. And if the short-term realized price is below the Bitcoin price, then the short-term holders are at a loss. And as you can see now, we are right about to touch that. You know, it's flirting with the STH realized price. So we're about to get to a point where the short-term Bitcoin holders are profitable once again, and that's usually the sign of a bull market rearing to go. Anyone else?
Sorry, we have a very Bitcoin maximalist just comment sitting at the bottom here, and I've got to address this. I'm sorry. Listen, I understand your position here, sir. However, what you're failing to realize, and specifically failing to realize, is the incredible amount of wealth generation that can accrue and the democratization of capital formation in such a way that has never occurred before in human history. Now, I love Bitcoin. I love Bitcoin just as much, if not more than you do. However, to say that the entire altcoin market and all altcoins are a mind virus is just pig-headed. I'm sorry. Yes, there are a lot of altcoins which are not reputable, which might be scams, which might have no utility. Those things we've all spoken about, spoken against on the show. However, the idea that that anybody in the world can at any point come and create a token and use that token to create, to raise money and form an amazing business, this has happened in the past, and this has proven itself to happen. And what it does is it takes the power away from centrally controlled VCs and the rich getting richer, and it hands it back to the people. One case in point is Binance. Binance would never have been able to happen if they didn't launch a token called BNB, and they created an empire. And that is a good thing for humanity, because those people who were in early, who were able to spot the opportunity, who were able to do the research and said, yes, this dude, CZ, I think there's something behind him, and he's able to execute on this. And they put their money on him. They took a risk. They did, and those who did their research and took a calculated risk paid off really well, and they were able to participate in something that before then only somebody who's a VC or super rich could have participated in. And this is the democratization of capital formation. And if you're just discounting it by saying, yes, there's also scams out there, this is a logical fallacy. I'm sorry.
What do the Bitcoin maxis want to counter to that argument about, you know, altcoins have generated some wealth, have created opportunities for funding early stage projects that don't exist? I want to get to Godly San in a bit to talk about that future of fundraising. But first, let's get a rebuttal from the maxis.
I will just go. Like I don't try to predict anything in the future. Obviously, there is right now value in altcoins, not in the sense that there is any legit use case. I would not like. There could be not. I'm not the one to comment on that. What I will say is, for me, the absolute use case is for me a little bit questionable, because you have an extremely secure network. I think I don't have to speak about that Bitcoin is the most secure network. It's like the best one out there. And then if you have another use case and you want to build it on a less secure network, that is some other altcoin that might be cool, might be a nice gimmick. But I don't know why we would not build something on, for example, a centralized database, if it's not really decentralized. Like, for me, it's not clear where altcoins come in, but there could be value. Like, I'm basically a free market maximalist, and if there is some altcoin that has value in the future, Bitcoin, people will buy it, and people will hold it. I don't care about them right now that much. If there's something really cool, like, I dismissed Bitcoin myself for 3 years as a scam, so I called something a scam before, and it turned out to be not a scam. So I'm open to new things that I call now a scam that might be in the future not a scam. That's like, it's not really a rebuttal on what he said, but I don't like altcoins right now. It's not clear for me where they're standing and what they're doing in the world, but maybe I did not do my deepest research on that. But the biggest thing for me is right now, I don't want to spend all day looking at charts, all day looking at, oh, what is that management team of that token doing? What is that CEO of that altcoin doing? I just want to save my financial energy in the best way possible. I want to save my energy in the best form possible and provide value. Like I was in that game before, I was spending all day trying to figure out what altcoin to buy, what stock to buy. I was even getting in real estate. I was playing all those games, and I found really peace with that once I figured out it's Bitcoin and Bitcoin only. Long term, as also Maddie said, long term, if you want to hodl, Bitcoin is the way to go, and Bitcoin is the best form for that. And I just want to put all my money in Bitcoin, and I want to provide value for society, value for everyone else that is out there with educational content, with programming that I did, with software development, with service, with all the things that I did in my last 6 years. Right now, I'm focused on podcast, but before I was a software developer doing things. So like there is certainly value in altcoins, because otherwise they would be at zero. They might be all at zero in 2 years. I don't know. Might be, might be not.
It's not possible for an altcoin to go to
the democratizing finances is an interesting use case. I don't see it right now, because then the government has to play a part in that, because I don't think they will let companies play like. I don't think they will let companies run on a not regulated capital market. It would be great if they would, but I don't see it right now. That's my.
So we dove a little bit into regulation on last week's show. I mean, there is the MiCA regulations now, which do allow for utility tokens and in a relatively unregulatory, restricted environment in the European Union. But in any case, Robin, you're cool. I love your opinion, which is, to sum it up, if I may, just that, look, I don't have anything against altcoins. If people want to trade in them, go for it. For myself, I've done my research, and my research leads me to Bitcoin only, and I don't want to touch the other one. That's awesome. That's a great opinion. I love it. And that's basically saying, okay, everybody should be able to do whatever they want to. It's a free market. Enjoy. But not for me. That's fine. I would love to get one of these guys like Alon or laser-eyed retard Sean on the show next week, so that we can debate them. Because I don't want to.
We just got commenters, and you're calling them retards. So next week we're going to just have the bots again.
They are retards. I'm sorry. You can say, look, I believe in Bitcoin because it's a free market instrument, but I don't believe in any other altcoin. I've heard these Maxis say, yeah, cheer on Gary Gensler and say, yeah, Gary, shut down the altcoin market. You freaking kidding me? Do you know who you're siding with over here? Do you know who you're siding with? You're siding with the enemy.
For me, I think it's. I think I was on a Bitcoin Maxi Twitter space a while ago. Smallish, like about 40, 50 people, but I got skewered because anything I said, like, that would just, because I'm very much into ordinals, runes, and all the BTC-Fi ecosystem that's popping up, and I try to explain my thesis and have a very genteel conversation, and I just got hammered because these guys have no tolerance for any opinion outside their own, and everything's a shit. But I said to them, listen, first of all, I appreciate sometimes, getting humiliated is good. You have to sharpen your sword and come back a lot more polished the next time. But also, I liken the maxis to, when you have a tree growing crooked, and sometimes crypto can grow a little crooked. The maxis are that pole that you put, to make sure that the tree stays the same. I want to get Godly Sand into this as well. Talk a little bit about the future of fundraising and how you see it. What role does community, do DAOs play in this whole equation? And, give us your take.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dudu. And thanks for all the other comments. Just shortly to amend on this topic, I believe we face a bit of a misconception as well, because we're just entering this new era of this new technology. Like, we're talking about Bitcoin being incepted 15 years ago, right? It's it's not a long time for such a deep technology to ripe and actually find their adoption use cases. And I think it's a bit delusional to believe that the first attempt to market will be what holds forever, right? Like that there's never something else coming up. So I think it's pretty clear that if technology goes ahead and innovators stay innovating in this space around Web3 and with this smart functionality which can derive from this innovation, as we see just the step from Bitcoin to Ether, allowing a whole lot more individual mechanics and methodologies to apply into new business models, this will continue. So I'm pretty certain, and I think just history of humanity shows that right now we maybe don't see it, but people will do crazy things in the future, and eventually there will be better technologies than we use now. So to believe Bitcoin is the one and only and stays the one and only forever, I think it's really delusional. Even though I understand, like, and now we move a bit more into this topic of alternative investments and maybe asset classes which are not really established yet, and the tokens definitely fall into this. It's a bit of wild west space, and it was abused largely in the last cycles, which is why maybe also the participants in our industry have been hindering adoption or real economic value a bit. But let's perceive it as discovery phase, right? We're validating a new product. So if you look at early stage startup development, we always are there a bit insecure. We don't know left and right, where is product market fit? So we need to be able to play around. And I as you mentioned before, Dudu, I think this playground, which was enabled for founders and innovators to come in, have a tool to actually build bigger things than just with their own funding, have a chance to fairly distribute participation to retailers they never seen before. There have not been any conversation to them. They simply pitch them through the social channels, networks, internet, and eventually the filtering works, right? Like not everyone gets funded. Even in the craziest bull run times, you still need to create value. You still need to convince the retail that you're actually doing something valuable, and then maybe you get more money than usually. And this leads to a lot of abuse or misuse, and maybe attracts also bad players to the market because it seems easy. But I think everyone who's themselves been involved in early stage innovation knows that even though it looks simple, it still has a lot of catches and obstacles. And that's why I support very much this kind of discovery of what can be a utility in the future. Like, is my token useful? I'm not 100% certain. I still want to issue it because, first of all, it accelerates my journey of innovation. And secondly, who knows? Like, I need to try, right? Like, give me the tools to try. And eventually I act in best will and with good faith, then it's fine, right? Like, what I don't like or dislike is like the easy place, which a lot of people abuse and rock and harm the community, which is actually believing this innovation and wants to support. So this is maybe the right time to also mention Trailblaze and Mighty Labs now, how they approach exactly this specific topic. Like, for us, it's very relevant that these stakeholders who are there to support building, they should have the right values. Because if we as stakeholders in the market who actually facilitate builders, let's say market makers, launch pads, security auditors, if we continue to look into like quick profits at all costs, we will always cycle this dirty loop and not continue to actually drive adoption. We won't allow the real economy to tap in because we just set the obstacles ourselves by being raked in this space. So now Trailblaze, as an example, comes in, and I think there's other groups, especially DAOs, who have the same sentiment, which start initiatives to actually facilitate avenues for founders to strive sustainably. And that's the major difference of development I see from the last cycle to now. It's like a lot more people want to actually bring the change. Like, it's enough. Like, we played enough, we gambled enough, we speculated enough. Now we want to see real economic value. So this is why I think also narratives like DePIN has a better mark and are discussed a lot, because we can clearly see how economic value can float in. And this is probably also much needed for this cycle, because I'm curious to hear other opinions, but what we perceive also in the Launchpad space is that we have not many more speculators joining since the last cycle, but we have many more builders joining. So it's more fragmented, the attention is more diluted, it's a bit diffused, no one really knows where we are. Now the institutional money comes in and fakes a bit the price of Bitcoin. So I believe, generally speaking, we're all good. Like, we're just a bit misperceiving where we are in the cycle. So it's a bit earlier than everyone thought. Bitcoin pumped a bit more than everyone thought, and now everyone thinks like, hey, where is the bull run? But it's normal. Like, if we look back into the fundamentals, and probably there are people in this forum which know better than me, but it has always been like this. We need to be patient. We need to keep building and do the right things and be brave and go out there and actually try things. So if we all just said, oh, the first currency which was ever developed or issued is it, like, where is innovation? Like, we want progress, and we will eventually be stuck in where we are, and that's not a good idea for a society in general. So yeah, this being said, I think it's a good idea for founders out there to really analyze well who they want to work with. There are very good people in the space, and there are other people which maybe are a bit more shiny and sound better, but in the end, they will block you in the long run. And if you're a founder with good values, you should definitely look into the market and detect like those players which really want to support. As for example, Mighty Labs with the DAO, building a community of testers, a community who can open network, and open doors, and to add this value alongside kind of this, let's say, software plays. A Launchpad is a very simple software. It's more about what is the community doing there? Like, why did they join the Launchpad? Are they looking for the quick flip? I want to have 5x in 1 week or 2 weeks. Or are they looking to actually build something which they can be called to be part of it from the inception, which impacts the world? And that's what Trailblaze does. So at the moment, we're trying to really kind of bring a bit of a different approach to building projects. And I think a lot of people should look at it, because it's, in my opinion, the only way to actually change this for good. And maybe just like as last comment, looking at like speculation with alternative assets, like, everyone should know their risk appetite. I think obviously the upside potential for certain alt currencies are way better. So I always say, like, it depends on your goals, right? If you want to use it as a reserve currency, if you want to build your pension, like, don't go into crazy altcoins. But if you start with $100 in Indonesia, which you save for a year, I wouldn't probably go into Bitcoin and let it rest, as well as, especially if you're knowledgeable and have the time to engage in the space. You're gonna find opportunities where you can turn these $100 quicker into 500, and from 500 maybe into 1,000. And once you reach 10,000, put half into Bitcoin, hedge yourself. But I understand people who want to find the journey of finding an advantage towards the other market participants. And then
thank you for that.
Excellent.
Yeah, excellent breakdown. It definitely matters who you work with and who you associate with. I think, this is a nice little comment from Chain Coiner. For those of you in the niche of jokes about technology, you might get it. I kind of get it. Like, I get it, but not really. But back to our conversation about maximalists. But I want to take it to Robin for the
respond to that, because there was a promise. Yeah, can I just respond to that? Because I think there was a couple of points made that what I would describe is a couple of, maybe I would describe it as a key misunderstanding about Bitcoin and maybe nature of technology as well. When you talk about and this isn't a Bitcoin versus altcoins thing. I mean, is that crypto is, there might be crypto assets. If somebody says they've got some digital art that's crypto, hey, that's crypto and that's art, so it's a digital asset, so that's fine. Clearly, there are other alternatives to Bitcoin. But would you say there's going to be Bitcoin is the first, so it's going to be replaced because there's going to be a new technology that comes along? what that fails to recognize is that Bitcoin is this open source technology that can be evolving over time and very capable of that. And so it may be true in the future that we can come up with new technological ways to do things better and faster, and pretty much, you know, I think it's fair to assume that people will evolve and come up with improvements in the future. But anything that's actually better than Bitcoin can be put and applied to Bitcoin. There's nothing out there that cannot be applied to Bitcoin. It's a code base. It's literally a code base that can change. And anything that's better than Bitcoin, if it's universally agreed that it's better than Bitcoin, then Bitcoin will have that power. So there will be no replacing Bitcoin. People might come up with new features that improve Bitcoin in the future, but Bitcoin is the base that can only be improved. It's like having the internet. The internet is better today than it was 20 years ago, but we're still going to be using the internet in 30 years' time, and it's going to be better in the future. But we're just going to be improving on the base of it. I feel very strongly that that's the case. It's not to say that I think that we can be open to this idea about other crypto assets from the perspective of people are trying to solve problems that maybe they haven't succeeded yet, but maybe they will in the future. I mean, people spent a long time trying to solve the problem of money, digital money. Satoshi wasn't the first one, but he was the first one to successfully solve it. So that's the point, right? There was a lot of crypto failures up until Satoshi, and then Satoshi figured out Bitcoin. He put the pieces together. So there might be some other, amazing use cases for this, crypto technology that does come in the future, and who's to say what's going to happen? But the issue that I think that comes is when somebody comes along and it's like what you're getting at, I've got this better Bitcoin. Well, the problem is that the people that say they've got a better Bitcoin, the problem is that their track record is terrible. It's terrible. Like, you're coming up and saying I've got a better Bitcoin, but look at your investment results. They're terrible. And so that's why you have to kind of be at least like, I guess have some sort of like self-reflection about why there's this kind of split in the community about what's happening. It's one thing to have, potential for alternative crypto assets, and you want to speculate on different ways of operating businesses. And maybe it'll work and maybe it won't work. But people are going to call you a scammer if you say you've created this next Bitcoin. Because there's no history. Like every piece of evidence suggests that if you come along and say you've got the next Bitcoin, it is a scam, almost certainly. So I think that's where we have to distinguish between the two things. And I guess I'll just leave it at that.
I agree with you. I think Bitcoin, I mean, there's a lot of development happening now with Opcat and ordinals, but Bitcoin was never about being the fastest, sexiest chain. It's about global consensus, and that's what drives it. And to say that something else will come, and the thing with network effects is if three of us are in a network and then someone else sets up a competing network, it only makes sense for me to leave if I know that, or let's say five of us in here. It only makes sense for me to join the competing network if I know that two of you guys are coming with me. And that creates sort of a disincentive to, especially with money, to go somewhere less liquid, less adopted. And Bitcoin was never about being the most technologically savvy. And Satoshi himself, like, you read the white paper, you look at the code a bit, like, it's a pretty marvelous piece of technology. But Satoshi's genius was in combining previous innovations and Merkle roots, in hashing, in the proof of work used to originally be a way to filter spam from emails, and Satoshi took all that together to create a system of money that is now adopted by hopefully Donald Trump and Vance, and adopted by El Salvador and Larry Fink and Michael Dell and Michael Saylor and Thomas and Robin over here and God Lisa and Matty and myself. and that is the Bitcoin. It's not about the technology. It's about the consensus, the global consensus. But here's another comment. I think that's the number one comment. That's I think what Robin was saying earlier. As other alts are coming to, full a plug that Bitcoin doesn't have. But I want to, we have a few more minutes left of the discussion, and I want to start with Robin for this question. It seems like we're heading in a very good direction in terms of the US changing in crypto policy. That will obviously bring, we were talking about that a bit earlier before the show, that will start to set the game theory in play. I don't want to talk about game theory from a high level nation state point of view. I want to talk about, for you, like, what do you think is missing, and for everyone on the panel, in order to help, because we're going to get 1 million, maybe 1 billion new Bitcoiners join us in the next couple of 6 to 18 months because of friendly regulation, because they're going to hear their president, vice president talk about it. What do we need to do in order to make them feel at home, in order to make them feel comfortable, in order to make sure people don't get burnt and never to return again?
Yeah, I think we are doing actually a great job here on the panel. Like, every one of us said basically Bitcoin is the safe haven. Like, correct me if someone disagrees with that, but I feel like everyone that was on the panel and spoke said like, oh, Bitcoin is the safe thing. That's the world reserve asset. That's the thing that you want to hodl for the long run. You don't want to trade it. When you trade it, then you get your profits in Bitcoin. One small comment on that, like, I'm personally, like, I was in that trading and looking at everything game, and I feel like it's really cool if you have your reserve currency asset and your safe haven, and you just like put your work out there. But how we enter them, and this is the point that I wanted to make here, we should make sure that people know what's a safe haven. And we should make sure that people know when they get into alts, they should really do a lot of research. Like, it's not blindly buy anything, like not even Bitcoin. Like, whenever you do something, and that's like, I love the quote, not buy Bitcoin, but study Bitcoin, like the shirt study Bitcoin, the slogan study Bitcoin, because that's the important thing at the end of the day. We should encourage people to go ahead and study. We should not tell them, oh, you should buy this, you should buy this, and you should not buy this and this. Like, we should never do that, not only because of financial advice and all that things, but just of pure logic. If you want to have someone long in the space, make them educate themselves, make them understand this thing themselves, give them a YouTube playlist, podcasts, books, articles in their hands that they can check out. And there are so many resources, so there is a value in that. Like, if someone comes to me, I have on my notes app something like a book to read, a playlist to look at YouTube, a podcast to like. I just have this ready and send it out to him if he wants to get involved in Bitcoin. And one thing I'm really bullish, since Michael Saylor said it on my podcast, spread Bitcoin with love. Like, I always had this in mind and always did that. And Michael Saylor is just really good in conceptualizing and speaking about things. And if you start spreading Bitcoin and spreading your message with love and not hate, so I'm not a big fan of calling someone else a retard or delusional or something like that. Let's welcome everybody. Let's be open to other people and spread Bitcoin, spread the message, the decentralized message with love and not hate. That's the main thing that I want.
No, I know you're not a maximalist.
No, like maximalist, like Bitcoin maximalist is like a weird term, because like there are so many different Bitcoin maxis. I'm just like, that's why I say I'm Bitcoin only and not really a Bitcoin maxi, because I have 100% all of my.
The Bitcoin maxis actually they call other people retards and therefore deserve any kind of criticism that they receive. Honestly.
Yeah, that's and I feel like. We should not do that. Like, no matter how much you disagree with someone, there's always, first off, a chance that he's right and you're wrong. There's always a chance that even if he's wrong, like, I love that example so much that Michael brought up in my podcast. If you have the cure for cancer and someone has cancer, you're inclined to say, hey, I have this cure for cancer, take this. And he says like, no, I don't want it. I don't trust you. I don't like that. It's new technology. I don't know what this is. If you say to like, oh, you're delusional, you're a retard, like you should not do that. Like he will never cure his cancer, because even if he,
but nobody with cancer is ever going to say that, dude. Nobody with cancer is ever going to say, oh no, I don't want to try an experimental, cure, because what other alternative do they have? It's either try the experimental cure where you have some chance or death. So you try the experiment.
Yeah, but the point is, like, if you want to convince anyone of anything, you have to do it with kind words, with love. Like whenever you were in sales, whenever you were in some type of where you have to basically convince people on something, or you want to convince people on something, if you are bad to them, they will never buy from you. There's always a provider B, C, D, F. So like, be kind, go out, love the world. And the only thing that I would do, and I think the panels also here do it, call out scams, but don't hate on them. Like if something is a scam, either don't talk about it. I think that's the best solution. I stop talking about things that I either don't know or I think that are scams. Or when you feel strongly about something, say, oh, I think it's a scam. You can do your own research. Don't say like, oh, I hate that thing. Like, don't get into this thing. Like, I think that's the main message that I want to get across. And if we just hate on each other and we call each other names, I think then the space will be a toxic space, no matter what camp you are.
What a perfect hippie. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you for that. I think we're coming. We reached the close. It's been an epic session. Thank you to all of you guys for joining. I think we had a record of live viewership. Anyone want to close us off with some closing comment? What do you think where will we be in the world next week? Are we going to see any life-changing historical events in the next 7 days, or is it just going to be some casual up and to the right?
Yeah, maybe I can jump in and thanks, Robin. Actually, I fully agree. Like, we should be spreading love generally, not only for crypto. I think the world needs people who spread love now more than ever. Like, we're not in a good shape at the moment, how I perceive. But yeah, I mean, in general, I think like the space needs more than ever something useful. Right? Like, we can spread the name, we can spread our experience. A lot of people tell their friends how much they got in money, like ways and whatever. But what the space really needs is a use case which works and which stays. So I hope that we can this cycle break this negative loop and actually crack it and understand where can we apply this technology the best. So it's not an overhead and actually makes sense. And then I think we will have a huge impact on the space and more serious players coming in, as we already see now, because it's just attractive to build in this environment. And especially the culture, and it goes a bit into the topic Robin mentioned. I think a lot of people are surprised by the positive culture in Web3. So let's not forget, like, we're all here coming as very friendly collaborators in compared to the fierce Web2 world where everyone is backstabbing. So we're already on the right path, but let's amplify it. And I definitely follow Robin's opinion here. So thanks very much for this awesome discussion. And let's embrace the space.
Cool. Thank you, everyone, for joining. It was wonderful to have you. We'll definitely have you back sometime soon. And enjoy the green candles and the rest of the day.
Thanks a lot, guys, for joining. The bots and the humans out there for watching. And we'll see you soon.